Hello.
Is that going to be your question?
Yes.
Yes. So actually, this is kind of fucking cool. Grover Cleveland was cool as fuck to the Hawaiians. He actually did a formal apology in his first State of the Address. His first State of the Union address, he apologized to the people of Hawaii.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And that was in 1898. So it was 2 years from that point that Hawaii would become a territory of the United States. And it was really because of the influence of those guys that had basically taken over. They were kind of just floating the idea around, but they all kind of knew they were going to be siding with America. They just needed to, like, get the economy back up and running, basically, to prove that they would be an asset to America, seeing how they just had a fucking coup. You know what I mean? And there were some other American people that were trying to help the Hawaiians leading into the point where it became a territory. But really, though, the damage had been done. And there have been petitions recently. This is kind of cool. And this is something that I thought was even more interesting. 130 fucking years later, right? Native Hawaiians have been petitioning their government about bringing this up as a vote within Hawaii to request its sovereignty back. Not everyone is sold on the monarchy. Some are, some aren't. But they want to bring it to a vote to request their sovereignty back. And it's kind of a dichotomy right now where some of them want it and some of them don't. Because some of them really love the tourism traffic. That's where their money's coming from. Others are just not dealing with it. And with, COVID-19 and whatnot, it's probably nice to be a part of the fucking United States. But at the same time, they're also trying to get to a point where, they can be sovereign again.
So would you say that you were in support, to some degree, of secessionist states?
To some degree, yeah. Some states deserve it. Texas fucking deserves it.
Because I think I would prefer myself as more of a regionalist.
Nothing wrong with that. And that's totally fine. Because that's really how the secession of a state should work, right?
And that's what
it shouldn't just be one. It should be multiple.
In the United States. They don't, yes, they'll think of when we come together, America.
Personally, I believe we should be getting rid of the states and just building massive commonwealths. 13 commonwealths. Why? Because we can lump all the taxes of the Midwest into the fucking Midwest. We can lump all the taxes in the southern East Coast into the southern fucking East Coast. New England, New York, and New York can take over Pennsylvania and Maryland and all that, all the way down to Virginia for all I give a shit. But
yeah, the Virginia thing is going to be very contested because if you ask anybody in the western parts of both Pennsylvania and Virginia, they're going to probably want to go.
No. Yeah. But the thing is, those taxes that they would be saving by combining those states together into single unified commonwealths where it's just a region would save a lot of their taxpayers a lot of money, because it's just lumping all of that area into one. This is whatever your state tax is now lumped. Sometimes it'll go up for some areas. Other areas it'll go way down. So it'll balance. Fortunately, we can't balance.
Now, I don't know if you've heard of this man. His name was either Irwin or Irving Schiff.
Irving Schiff.
He was
I'm
put in
actually going to
prison.
be doing an episode on him soon.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I'm going to be doing an episode on him and Johann Schmidt. Johann Schmidt was a fucking mad motherfucker. But I'm not going to be subjective about the history that I cover, because history is not subjective. History doesn't give a shit who won or lost. It's always written by the victors, so they don't give a shit about who lost. But I can talk about what happened because of the people who did lose, and the stories that have continued on from there, and how the history has continued on beyond. So I have a lot of fucking categories I'm going to be covering. Everything from music history to sociology to my next episode that I'm going to be working on. Actually, the one that I'm going to be hopefully doing the script for Monday, and then doing the actual broadcast where I record it on Tuesday, is actually going to be about a anthropological phenomena. It's a phenomena they study in anthropology called cargo cults.
I've heard of those.
They're really fucking interesting.
Yes,
so I'm going to be doing some fun stuff with that as well. We're going to be talking about really famous philosophers and their history and maybe why we shouldn't listen to them anymore. And some other ones, you know, major figures in history and some of their darker points, like how, you know, I'm trying to remember his name now. Sigmund Freud. There we go. Sigmund Freud was a fucking crazy barbiturate and cocaine addict.
Oh, yes.
You know, a lot of people don't talk about that.
Psychology.
Don't talk about
it's hit and miss.
I'm going to be talking about Thomas Edison and how he stole a shitload of ideas.
Yes, my dad told me that several times.
I'm going to talk about Nikola Tesla and some of his crazy inventions that he had conceptualized that are way beyond their time.
And I believe he was possibly murdered. That's a theory, though. That
is one of the theories, and I'm going to be bringing this up at the end. At the end of my video, I said, now here's your homework. Because I'm trying to do kind of something educational where you can look into your own research and do your own research beyond and, you know, continue. I'm just opening the door.
As it should be.
I agree. 100%. If this topic doesn't interest you, you're not going to look into it. If this topic interests you, you're more likely to look into it. And in my sources, I do have the National Education Agency.org as one of my major sources, because they were a massive help getting the information I was looking for about how in 1897, 1898, when America properly annexed Hawaii, it was actually against foreign law. It was against the United States foreign law to annex unless a declaration of war or a declaration of treaty were signed and known by both parties, right? Neither of those happened. Neither of them happened. America had already had troops based on the island, Ford Island, where Pearl Harbor would be. They already had shit there, and so they didn't really, it wasn't like a big deal for them to just fucking hop over to the main goddamn island and over to Honolulu, which is right fucking there. It's crazy how just this is so swept under the rug. I had no idea how Hawaii became a territory. I had no idea how Hawaii became a state. But it became a state in 1959. So it was.
Yeah, that's why when you see
an interesting thing, and I thought it would be fun because it's just a perfect opportunity. I'm going to be doing Alaska next.
Well, because it was along the ones that was one of the last places to become a state.
Do you know why America wanted it?
Resources?
No.
Oh.
See, you would think it's resources. And for the most part, you would be mostly correct. But I'm going to pose a question to you. You're on a boat, a wood sailing ship, right?
Yes.
And you're going from California, let's call it San Francisco. You're going from San Francisco to Hong Kong. Are you going to make it all the way across the Pacific Ocean in just your little fucking wood ship? Or are you going to need to stop and get provisions?
Yeah, you're gonna have to make stops.
Where the fuck are you going to stop in the middle of the Pacific Ocean? Hawaii.
Yes,
It's the only place of significant value in the Pacific Ocean that had the means, the people, and the resources to restock your ship. And so America realizing this was the only way they'd have any control in the Pacific theater. Oh, hey. Can we buy Fort Island? No, it's a sacred land. Oh, but we really want it. No, it's sacred to our people. Fuck you. Oh, okay. You should really sell it to them. Yeah, if you don't sell it to them, we're going to stop paying your employees. Okay. Looks like we're going to America, guys. And that's basically what happened. America was imposing tariffs everywhere. It wasn't on just fucking Hawaii. It was on England, it was on Spain, it was on France, it was on all of Africa, it was on Barbados, it was on Jamaica, it was on Haiti, it was anyone. If you were not in America, you were getting taxed to bring your shit in to sell it here. And that was what was fucking up the economy of Hawaii. They had sugar at a more competitive rate than most other countries, minus Jamaica and Haiti, that they needed to maintain this aggressive market because they're competing with Jamaica and Haiti. And if you know anything about Jamaica and Haiti, you know those were sugar slave cults.
Yes.
So the fact that they had slave labor meant their sugar was more, first off, bigger plantations, and two, cheaper. So Hawaii needed to maintain that aggressive stance on their marketing and on their export and import because the tariffs, fuck, Jamaica and Haiti didn't give a shit. Oh, it's a little bit into our fucking profits. Oh well. Versus Hawaii, which was mostly socialist. Your entire economy is about to collapse when they fucking tariff your only major export. And getting these levied took a long time, and they eventually did get them levied for 7 years. But they came right back in full force and got even worse going forward. Until they became a territory. Then their tariffs disappeared. Whack, right?
That's why I've always been so, I never really understood tariffs. And that's why when he did the tariffs thing, and I'm like, okay, what's really going on here? But
so
I was too lazy to figure
it out. So basically a tariff is we, as a country, are taxing the people distributing it over here, right? So their ship comes over here, and they have to pay a tax on all their product from the country. And depending on what country it's from, the tariff tax is higher or lower. So if something from Germany is coming over to America, it's going to be tariffed, of course, but it's going to be a much lower tax on that tariff than it would be from China. Now, the reason why our China tariff is so high is because we're losing jobs to them. And that's like, the silver bullet that a lot of Republicans see, and that's not the silver bullet they think it fucking is. It's not going to solve the problem with China. It's just going to move all the import and export to India, which it already fucking started doing. So they effectively shot themselves in the foot by blocking a massive fucking importer and exporter. And by making it harder for China, now we have to deal with India, which is a much more expensive fucking place. Their labor costs more. And it's this whole fucking weird, it's so stupid.
And yes, also, who are the most offensive polluters in the world? It's China
and India. China and India. America doesn't even come close on that scale. It's fucking mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, we're actually better.
We're 5th or 6th on that list. That's insane.
Yeah, and they don't pay attention. That in the Ganges River, how horrible it's treated.
Everyone drinks out of it.
I know.
What the fuck is that bullshit? There are dead bodies. There's fucking needles. There's fucking chemical waste. What the fuck?
Human waste.
Ugh. Yeah, no. What the shit is going on over there? I'll probably do an episode on India eventually.
My friend from Chicago told me it has partly to do with how the Hindus view nature. It's not so they think it can sustain itself, but no, it has to. You have to also assist in that process as well. We have a responsibility.
Sort of. I'll be getting into that in one of my episodes. The main one, I'm really excited. I've been learning a bunch about these states while working on this project specifically. And one of my favorite ones, I'm really excited to do a topic on it, is Wyoming.
Yes, it's barely populated, but seems like a nice place to live. Although there's this guy on YouTube that does good and bad reasons to live or move to Wyoming.
I love him. I love him.
Yeah, very interesting.
Hear me out. Wyoming, when it was brought up to be brought into the Union as a state, refused to join the Union because the Union wouldn't allow women the right to fucking vote.
The Union.
Wyoming joined when the U.S. said that it was okay for women to vote in Wyoming. So Wyoming joining the Union under the grounds that women would always have the right to vote. And the reason why is because every major city, every major hub of transport, communication, fucking goods, services, or transport were all run by women. Every town in Wyoming was started by a brothel. They also had the first female governor.
Oh, and by the way, what year was this that became a state?
It was 1870? It was just after the Civil War, if I'm remembering this correctly.
Because the thing is, there are these whole things that, like the 19th Amendment, and they said that that's when women got the right to vote. Although in certain states, women already...
A lot of states gave women the right to vote right away, and it all started with fucking Wyoming.
That's what I was thinking. It relates to that.
Afterwards, then Washington, then Oregon, all of which allowed for women the right to vote. Same with California, Arizona, and New Mexico. Utah and Nevada were outliers in this line because Montana allowed it, Idaho allowed it, a bunch of states fucking allowed it. And it's insane that this is just such a footnote point in history. And I'm really excited to be getting into these new states. I'm really excited to be getting into more about how they became territories in the history, about how each state came into being a territory. I'm going to do a follow-up video where I'm going to be talking about how it became a state coming afterwards. So in total, there will be about 100 episodes. And oh my God, it's so cool. It's so interesting. I've already made it a point, though. Don't ask me to do Delaware. Delaware will be last because they were first.
I'm excited to see what my state is going to be.
You're North?
Carolina.
Yeah, I know Carolina. It's North Carolina.
It used to be the Carolina until...
It did used to be the Carolina, and I'm really excited to bring that up as a topic when I bring that episode up. Because what I'm going to do is North and South Dakota, 1 episode. North and South Carolina, 1 episode. But it'll probably be a 2-part episode because their histories are all so linked with those 2 states.
Yes.
And I'm probably going to have to do something similar with West Virginia. And it's mainly because West Virginia wasn't a territory. It was just the Virginians that didn't agree with slavery. They were just like...
As is a lot of people in the region, like Western North Carolina, Western Virginia, the whole region sided with the Union. Yep.
Appalachia.
Yep.
Let's call it what it is, because that's its name.
Yes.
And I'm really excited to be bringing this education to people.
And that's why I like to bring it up to people who think that they judge all Southerners. And I'm like, okay, first of all, there's a whole complex issue to our history. And
Most
don't
of
judge
it
us
is
all.
systemic. Most of the history of the South is a systemic issue. You shouldn't hate the South. Shouldn't rip on them too much. I rip on them a lot, but I lived in the South for a little bit, and so I saw what the Southerners are like compared to Northerners. Here's the thing. As much as... Oh, thank you for the 1,000.
Welcome.
As much as Northerners like to feign at equality and equal rights and equal amendments and equal everything, the North is the most segregated.
Yes, it is.
Anywhere else in the world.
Unless you go to the inner cities, and that's the whole exception. But when you go to the South...
Even still, that even shows even further segregation. I live in the inner cities. Minneapolis is kind of a weird outlier because we have a lot of programs in place to help with this segregation. They don't work, but we have them in place. I'm really excited to talk about Minnesota. Minnesota's going to be one of the last ones I do because I know the most about it. We're going to be doing Daniel Sickle. That's my first figure I'm going to be talking about. And then I'm going to be talking about cargo cults in the next episode. I haven't decided what the 4th episode
those get weird. So weird.
Oh, they do. That's the point. I want to talk about the side of history that is just footnote shit. Stuff that you don't even think about because it's not ever brought up in school. You know? That's the whole point of the name. They don't teach that.
Most schools
they don't
today
teach that in school.
Well, most schools are pathetic
Most schools
now.
are fucking number factories. It's all about that bottom line and the standardized test scores. You know what the standardized test scores teach? You know what they teach? Not the kids. They teach society which kids are going to jail and which kids are going to fucking succeed.
Yeah, you ain't wrong on that one.
They ain't there for the, oh, look how smart this school is versus this one. No, it's these kids are going to jail. We know that. These kids are going to go on to fucking go to school.
No child left behind.
Colleges. And
ruined things. Or was it way before that even?
Bush ruined it.
Oh, he did.
George W. Bush. George W. Bush undermined our entire education system with his bill, No Child Left Behind. When kids no longer were able to be held back and no longer, your grades don't mean shit. So what? You don't fucking graduate high school.
That's what my stepfather has considered. That's why he's homeschooling my half-sister. Also,
absolutely right. No Child Left Behind is the biggest blight on the education system. And a lot of these Republican states are pushing even further statutes on these education bills, which is destroying and undermining the education system. The problem is that a lot of these educators and a lot of these states that are pushing these systems are all in the South. Destroying the Southern economy, forcing Northerners to move south to fill the jobs that Southerners
and that's
can't
why
do.
a lot of, and then you know what? That's what I'm. This is not me hating on the Northerners. It's just
Raleigh was listed as one of the #1 places to fucking move before 2025.
No surprise.
Raleigh was listed as the #1 place to move before 2025. Because Raleigh's entire economy is exploding right now. Big tech companies are finding it's cheaper to set up shop near Raleigh meaning that the Raleigh housing bubble is about to get ridiculously big. And you're going to start seeing all sorts of massive development projects beginning in Raleigh here in the next 2 years. And it's because big tech companies are moving down to fucking North Carolina. A lot of big tech companies are setting up new.
You know what? This is what Brendan O'Connell has described as the breaking down of the United States, dividing it because you ruin the South. They're bringing people from, basically you separate in the cities that are burning, and then those that are in the southern areas. There are big tech companies coming in, and
which cities are burning?
The liberal one.
On what pole, north or south, are they burning? Because it's the north that's burning.
Exactly, and that's what
it's the north that's burning because our job market is so competitive because of our education.
The thing is, I don't want them to come here because, even if you are conservative, only because it will erode our way of culture.
It's already begun. I hate to break it to you, but it's already begun.
Yeah, well, I'll do whatever I can to tell people to stay there and hold the fort down.
Go ahead and look online. You can Google this. The demographic of emigration to Houston from other states. And you'll see that most people that are moving to Texas and Houston specifically for the science and tech jobs, a lot of them are coming from the north, and most of them are liberal.
Yeah, and that's why there was this guy on the Joe Rogan who said, the thing is, when you come to Texas, you're kind of expected to vote and be a certain way. And he was doing it passive-aggressively, and I kind of liked how he did that because, exactly, that's why...
how Texans are.
Well, how Southerners are in general, because we're getting tired of it. We are getting tired of it. We don't like to be told what to do when we've been doing and succeeding over time.
I mean, to be fair, hold up. To be fair, the last time anyone told the South what the fuck to do, a war broke out.
Exactly.
Okay? And I have been pointing this out for fucking years now. At least a decade, because I remember the first thing, it was in my world history class. My teacher said, "Where do you see America in the next 10 years?" And I said, "In a civil war." Because it's true.
I know. Well, and what kind of civil war?
The fact that I was almost right 10 years later is really funny to me. Because we were on the brink of it not too fucking long ago. Fucking a month ago, we were getting ready, fucking board up the goddamn Wallace and grab your musket.
Although, in what way? Is it going to be actual conflict, or is it going to be in a different way? Such as...
And that's the thing.
That's the whole people are discussing.
That's the thing. Is it going to be a violent coup, like the Civil War, or is it going to be a mostly political coup, like in Hawaii? See, it's weird how those contrast, and it's weird how they're comparable. Because they are. It was a civil war that happened in Hawaii. It may not be classified as such. It is classified as a coup, because it is to end a monarchy. And because it wasn't an actual war, all of it took place over the course of a day. Okay? It took place between noon and 7 of the 17th of January. Noon and 7. That's 7 hours. That's not that fucking impressive. Right?
Yep.
But it was the threat of violence, which is also something I brought up multiple points throughout the episode, is the threat of violence within the monarchy really had some powerful sway from the king and the queens.
The thing is, would they have acted on it?
Nobody fucking knows because they never had the chance.
That's why...
It might have been a bluff.
Exactly.
The whole thing might have been a bluff, start to finish. And they just, there's violence being threatened. I better back down. Which is really strange to me. Because if you've ever met a fucking Hawaiian, that's not what the fuck they're like. You want to talk about abrasive personalities? Native Hawaiians are a people of their own.
Yes, they are.
150 fucking percent. They are unlike nearly anyone on the planet. They are biologically different in a lot of ways in their genetics and like
even from the
way
other
they metabolize
Polynesians.
certain things and like how stuff's processed, which every nationality in every area of the world does have that kind of thing. Like, this is an interesting one, and it seems really racist on the surface, but when it's explained, it makes a lot more sense.
Basically, it's just
I
an
had a
observation.
friend- Well, yeah, well, all right, so this is my example.
Okay.
I have a friend who asked me one time, because I got a cheeseburger, right? And I'm Jewish. And he goes, "Can you taste the meat and cheese?" I go, "Yes, of course. Why wouldn't I be able to?" And I come to find out because he explained it to me as, this is a real thing too. This has been observed. Sometimes people of Jewish descent do not have the acquired taste to enjoy cheese or dairy products with meat because it's against kosher to have a meal that is cheese and meat. And so they can't taste it together. They have to taste it separate.
Yes.
And that's just the thing about the palate. It's the same thing with Jewish people being much more likely to be allergic to shellfish than other nationalities. We're predisposed to be allergic to it because we're not supposed to fucking have it.
So,
for
like
generations
tolerance.
we didn't. We don't have the antibodies. We don't have the stuff to process it. It makes us sick instead.
Well, certain Native Americans or
Can't process
Amerindians.
alcohol.
Exactly.
They can't process alcohol because their liver doesn't have the enzymes. It never had to produce them. It never had to make them. Isn't that fucking crazy?
Now, the thing is, what did they drink?
Water.
Well, the thing is, you had to get it from a spring because that's the cleanest water you could find.
Yeah, you do realize the United States of America is fucking covered in springs. Natural spring pockets. Natural water pockets that are clean, fresh water.
Do not share with the
I won't share with the cats. Like Minnesota, for example.
Well, the thing is, the
we
desert is very
have over
problematic.
10,000 clear water lakes. We have over 10,000 freshwater lakes. Do you know how you clean fresh water? You desalinate it with fire. You burn a pot.
Yes, you boil it.
They had access to materials to make rudimentary pots that could withstand fire, and they would desalinate their water. That is something that has been observed, and at least like anthropologically study-wise. Just saying. The other thing too is, I'm sure they had their drinks, but I'm sure their drinks weren't alcoholic, if you get my drift.
Yes.
Maybe more hallucinogenic than
Oh,
alcoholic.
peyote. Well, peyote is it's a plant.
And peyote was known to be used by the Cherokee, the Blackfoot, and many other indigenous regions of the far west. The Navajo, even.
Yes,
Use it.
that's what I've heard.
So-
I never heard amongst the Cherokees because my...
Maybe it wasn't the Cherokees I was thinking of. I'm thinking of another one that's out that way. That's
Because we have a reservation in the far western part of
oh yeah,
the state.
Cherokees East Coast. I'm thinking of a totally different one.
And then
Maybe it's
there's one in
Mohawk.
Oklahoma on one of the panhandles, I think.
Uh-huh.
And my
The
step
Panhandle, you can find peyote though.
and my step grandmother is a native.
Hmm.
That's why I was
Lovely people.
That's why I was very concerned when her and my grandfather got COVID, but they made through it because I've heard that it's affected natives a lot more. But I'm glad she got.
destroying them.
Yes, and
It's doing
that's
so
why
much
I
damage.
consider, is this really a biological weapon? Possibly, to some degree, because it's really going down to people's blood type.
I'm going to back you up. Hold on. I'm going to back you up. We agree on this. Because here's my argument. Was polio, or not polio, smallpox. Was smallpox not a biological weapon?
I mean, we didn't.
Not intentionally.
Not intentionally.
Not intentionally.
Well, they didn't genetically modify it.
We can't refute the facts that smallpox took a village of 10,000 straight to zero.
Yep, the Trail of Tears.
We cannot dispute that, a civilization 350,000 strong was completely wiped out overnight by a disease.
The only thing is, the way that some people, SJWs and media, will say it like, oh, we purposely did it. No, we didn't. We didn't do it purposely.
I don't think it was maybe personal.
Yeah,
but
they exaggerate the whole thing.
Here's the thing. It's a little column A, a little column B. They are right. They're just going about it in the wrong way.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
The real fact would be, although it wasn't intentional, maybe, though some of them it was, though some of them it very much was, Cortez comes to mind, because Cortez did actually do that. He took sick crewmates on his ship and made them sleep in blankets to sweat into the blankets to distribute those blankets to the public.
God.
And that's why the Aztec race is gone. That's why Aztecs don't fucking exist.
Now, wait a minute. There was also a conflict between the Mayans and the Aztecs, weren't there? And
yes.
One was using the other as sacrifices and slaves. So that was also contributed to Catholicism.
Spain was cool with the Incas. Spain was cool with the Incas because they kept stealing from the Incas, and the Incas didn't know better. They didn't recognize gold as wealth. The Mayans would kidnap Incans and sell them to the Aztecs. So,
and there's because of that, and the Spaniards, basically the conquistadors, when they arrived, along with missionaries, that had a role in Christianity.
The Mayans took over because the Aztecs were aggressive and the Incans were stupid. That's literally how that went. The Mayans took over the rest of it because the conquistadors destroyed the Aztecs and just exploited the fuck out of the Incas.
Teaching them about Christianity, I mean, but a lot of them accepted it of free
Mayans
will.
accepted it. The
Mayans did
not.
Okay, they did.
Mayans accepted it. Aztecs did not. Aztecs had to go.
Although you're seeing a pattern, and of course part of this has to do with not just people in shadow governments, all that.
That's just history.
But there is a resurgence of like these cartels. They're taking a they'll take like Santeria or some more primitive religion that used to exist before Christianity came, and they're going back to it. And they say that's kind of the fall down.
Muertos. That was the one I kept hearing about. It was muertos. Which is like, death. Muerta means death. Yeah,
because these drug cartels are practicing like human sacrifice, like taking the heart out and stuff.
Tactics. That's all fear tactics.
But it has happened. Like heads have been separated from people after they've died, and they will send them to people.
Hold on. Back up. So in the 1980s, Israeli government officials hired a group of private Israeli subcontract military.
I've heard that too. Now
which would later set the groundwork for what would be called the Mossad. Israel's CIA. Now,
very brutal.
These guys that we're going to call the Mossad, because they were the Mossad, were called in to deal with a terrorist threat. There was a terrorist from Egypt that was bothering them and threatening mass death all the time. So they called these guys in. Not only did they get the job done, they decapitated him, they decapitated his wife, they decapitated all four of his children, and sent the heads to the Egyptian government as a threat. Don't fuck with us. We will kill all of you. Period.
Something as similar as that, or at least from what I've seen, and this is what Brandon O'Connell has said about the movie Sicario. There's a lot of truth to what actually goes on as far as like psyops and stuff, and you do see that.
The thing about psyops that a lot of people mistranslate is they think it's all spies and glamour.
Well, no, it's not.
The deadliest shot is the one that never fired. And that is how PsyOps addresses everything. If you are a threat, we are going to find ways to find anything we can about you. Find out what you're fucking planning. Find out who your fucking aliases are. Find out anyone associated with you. And if we fucking have to, we'll kill everyone that has ever fucking known you.
And deception.
Perfect.
Like pretending to be, I mean, that's what happened in Poland before World War II.
Absolutely is right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's science.
Even to the point where
Operation Mockingbird, all of this.
Met like mad high levels of the fucking like government.
And that's why, and this is why I always say, I do not like it when people judge the common masses, when you got to think of it as it's the very few that cause the majority of the wars and problems for everybody else.
See, a lot of people think I'm a fucking liberal. And then a lot of people think I'm a fucking conservative. I am the truest form of libertarian.
So, would you be okay, I would be a paleo-libertarian because I'm a paleo-conservative. I'm more of a Pat Buchanan type of conservative.
Okay.
As far as I mean, especially in regard to mass immigration, in exponential numbers, it's actually not helping the health of the nation state. And I think that we should...
It's not. But at the same time, we also have to realize that illegal immigration is not something we can stop. And so there's kind of this weird... It's kind of a weird catch-22 with it, right? You should let everyone through. But you also shouldn't because it's going to diminish job supplies. But at the same
it's because of corporatism.
But
corporatism is because of that.
Exactly. And so it's this weird, it's almost this devilish cycle that doesn't make any fucking sense, doesn't work, it doesn't do anything except fucking improve and increase our fucking police enforcement, increase our fucking funding for... Did you know you could be stopped by the Border Patrol agent if you live within 100 miles of the coast?
What?
I didn't fucking know that.
Okay, why the coast?
The coast is technically a border. And therefore, Border Patrol has jurisdiction up to 100 miles from any border, terrestrial or aquatic. If it's an ocean, it's technically a border, and therefore they have jurisdiction, which means they can stop you, pull you out of the car, and search your car without any fucking warrant. Period.
Any constitutional loopholes to get around that for avoiding?
For any reason.
You can't?
For any reason.
Oh, God.
You could be driving the speed limit following every traffic law. They can pull you over. Because. And they
Sounds
can
like
ask
Joe Arpaio stuff.
arbitrary questions that violate your Fifth Amendment right to not self-impersonate, like incriminate.
Well, couldn't you just say I plead the fifth?
Nope.
What?
When you are dealing with the Border Patrol, your rights don't exist. Period. That is in their ruling. That is something that the Border Patrol can fucking enforce. If you sue them, you will lose.
All right, what
Several
about with...
people have lost cases in Arizona, New Mexico, California, Texas, Washington, Oregon, Minnesota, and Montana because the Border Patrol had legal jurisdiction to do everything they fucking did.
So what's your stance on sanctuary cities, in quotes?
Define.
If anybody comes in illegally and they go into a sanctuary city, they don't have to fear getting deported, or they'll do what they can to keep that person from being deported. But when you bring up the Kate Steinle case, in which she was murdered by an illegal that has been deported over 3 times, and there's like the Kate's law that...
You're asking for my opinion on something so profoundly stupid to me. Think about that.
But it does happen.
Think about that. What the fuck is immigration gonna do to stop someone who crossed the border 3 fucking times illegally?
Well, the thing is, a lot of these people...
Here's another fact we need to throw out. Most illegal immigrants immigrate here legally under actual work visas. Okay? So, to bring up, like, oh yeah, she was killed by an illegal immigrant who had crossed...
Well, he was also a convict as well. That's the problem.
That's my same argument with gun control. Okay, you want to take away the guns from the legal and the right owners, the people who are actually following the fucking rules? Criminals don't give a fuck about your fucking rules. Criminals are going to keep doing what criminals fucking do, and that's break the fucking law. It's not rocket science. Illegal immigration, it's not going to fucking stop. Period. It'll never stop. The only thing you can do is try to stem it. And that's it.
And we did stem it for years ago. We periodically closed borders to allow assimilation to take place, and then whenever there was a next time, within maybe 10 or 20 years, we opened them back up.
We have to. Because what happens when we close it? Illegal immigration booms. There's no point. At this point, at anything, the only way Americans can stop illegal immigration from the southern border is to annex it.
Thing is, that's
really the only way.
That's the problem.
That sounds fascist as fuck. But that's the solution. See what I mean? It'd be much
then
easier.
It goes to the whole thing that, and also they're putting.
Wouldn't it be easier to patrol Panama? Wouldn't it be easier to keep that line because it's smaller? Wouldn't it be easier to take Ecuador? Wouldn't it be easier to take Honduras?
Well, the thing is, those countries are also allowing the people.
Wolf gets, or Troll gets it. You cannot stop crime. And that's the problem with illegal immigration laws. You cannot stop people from breaking the fucking law. If they're gonna do it...
My concern is the people that... Well,
You're
my
not
problem...
a murderer. If he wants to kill someone, he's gonna kill someone. And you have to catch him after.
That's why I believe in... For all the people that think, I don't believe in using a gun to defend myself because it hurts that other person. Shut up. It's a dog-eat-dog world.
I think it should be mandatory that every American citizen owns a gun.
Exactly.
I think it should be mandatory.
There's some places in the United States that are making it mandatory for everyone to know how to use a gun.
Mm-hmm.
It levels the playing field.
I'll go one fucking step further. I think gun safety should be taught in middle school.
Well, it used to at one point.
You should be learning how the fuck to use a gun safely. Period. If you haven't already. So, I mean, to be fair, I also think auto shop should be a mandatory class in school. To know your car and to know how to do basic maintenance on your car, it's just a good skill to have. And it's a very vital skill to have. And I think it should be taught more in school, and it should definitely have a greater emphasis in the education program. Unfortunately, a lot of schools with auto shops are actually phasing them out of the curriculum, which is the totally wrong direction you want to be going.
Of course.
You need to be teaching kids trades. We need to be.
And a lot of the people that go to the trade schools, they make more money in the over time than they would.
Nobody wants to be a plumber, but guess what? Plumbers make bank.
Exactly.
And they can joke about it all the way there. I'm a libertarian. And I don't sugarcoat that. And I hold very true to my beliefs as a libertarian. I believe freedom isn't free. But at the same time, the way that technology and the world itself has progressed since the time of our forefathers, we're not dealing with the black and white situations they're fucking dealing with.
Yes, I cut my hair.
Hi, Rosario. How you doing, girl? My issue mainly comes down to, with automation, socialization needs to be on the rise. I know that sounds crazy. I'm actually being a little pro-socialist right now.
Well, I mean,
with automation, labor is becoming obsolete. Without labor, there goes 2/3 of the jobs across the world.
Then how are people going to sustain themselves? That's the problem.
You have to socialize. You have to become socialist.
Or is it more the way that, okay, to what degree is socialism?
Basic human needs. Food, water, home, internet. Cars on your own. If you want a job and you work, you can earn more. But if you don't want to work, you don't want to make that money, you don't want to do anything like that, but you're totally cool doing side jobs, that's where your extra money's coming from. You want name brand or store brand? That's the main difference. It's just like the way EBT works. Just like the way WIC works. It's socialism, which is not what we fucking want. Mind you, socialism fails 9 times.
Yes, it often does. You see it throughout history.
It fucking fails constantly. The only country on the planet that has done socialism right is Vietnam. And I don't think anyone wants to be like goddamn Vietnam.
No. But isn't it also
place.
because of the culture, the Asian culture there as well? Wouldn't that have something to do with it?
Absolutely. It's the same issue that I have. It's the same issue that comes up with the story of Hawaii. So much of Hawaiian history was actually socialized because it was a monarchy. Under the monarchy, everyone had a job that they had to do. And if they didn't do it, punishments. You know what I mean? And so with that, you end up getting this really, everyone has their job, everyone has their function, everyone has their purpose. And it wasn't until European and American settlers were coming to Hawaii and setting up those plantations, setting up those businesses that were all foreign owned. Well, foreign owned means one or two guys, in charge, and then fuckloads of cheap labor. So all this cheap labor is, keeping the economy afloat. Everyone had a job, everyone had a purpose. But, talk about a flourishing society. They had democratic voted elections for their ambassadors. They had democratic elected votes for like new kings and queens. When a monarch would die, it wasn't just pure nepotism. It was decided by the council through vote. So if there wasn't a line,
what type of government would that be described as?
it is still an absolute monarchy. The monarch had final say in everything.
I mean, there's constitutional monarchy, there's parliamentary democracy.
It would be considered a constitutional monarchy. Because
That's what I thought.
Rights. You had the right to vote if you were from Hawaii. Only if you were a native, though. So if you were the son of a missionary, guess what? You didn't have the right. Couldn't vote.
What if?
And so there was a lot of weird shit that started popping up.
But what if you were? What if your mother was native?
Didn't matter.
What? Oh my gosh!
You're not native.
We got a caste system going on.
To be fair, they made Catholicism fucking illegal for like 7 years. Okay?
But Father Damien brought it to Hawaii. Well, he was one of them.
Queen Kahuamanu, along with many of her fellow chieftain, kicked all the ministers of the Catholic faith off the fucking island.
Well, what about the Lutheran and the
Didn't matter to them. They were Protestant. That wasn't the issue. It was the Catholics, specifically the French Catholic. The French Catholic, and by extension the entire French, all the French.
Okay, so it was the French in general, okay.
It was the French Catholics. And it was because the French Catholics were literally inquisiting in Hawaii. They were torturing people into conversion. Even though Protestant Christianity was the predominant religion on the islands. How insane is that? How crazy!
Well, the whole thing is...
The Queen was Protestant! The Queen! King Kamehameha I was also a Protestant. What?
Well, also, they had the French also got the. I think there was also a lot of like baggage that they had in their history as well.
This was during the French conquest and imperialism in Southeast Asia. So this was considered more aggression than anything else from the Hawaiian people. Because they had heard from the Philippines, they had heard from Vietnam, they had heard from China, they had heard from fucking everyone at this point. Don't fuck with the fucking frogs. They're fucking dicks. And history has only proven the frogs have always been dicks. So, was it that much of a surprise that they were assholes to fucking Hawaii? Another cool fact. Hawaii, as a sovereign nation, was recognized all across the world. Super cool. The thing is, during that time, there were 40 sovereign nations in the world. That number is now 180.
190 something, depending on who you ask.
Yes, depending. It's all based around that like two China, one China system that a lot of the world has. And there's a few other ones that break that down as well, where they have sovereignty, but they're not
and Serbia. Although sovereign. I think Kosovo is actually
technically sovereign, but not sovereign.
Well, just by the way it was formed, and it goes back to the Bosnian War and what we did there and all that.
Well, so Palestine is technically on that list as well as a sovereign nation, because their sovereignty is to Israel. But they're Palestinian. They're not Israeli. You know what I mean? So there are other examples throughout history as well. There are other examples currently. But at the time, to be a sovereign nation was something really highly regarded. And, like, they had diplomats in the UK. Okay? Imagine the UK meeting, or not the UK, the UN meeting, and America, and then there's Hawaii. just sitting there. Because that's how a lot of these delegations would happen. Maybe not like the UN with the big fucking room or anything like that. But
I hate the UN.
Well, you should. They're fucking
good. Yes, they suck. And Wilson is the precursor
trash.
to that. He's the reason it came about, at least from the beginning, with the League of Nations.
The League of Nations was also a fucking travesty. I'm going to be going into them in an episode here soon too.
I kind of have
Morgan,
a good
did you watch the
info on
episode?
all that.
Because I'm about to do a second airing.
Yeah, I finished it.
Yeah, what'd you think?
It was pretty good, man.
You okay?
I'm tired as hell. I played open mics all damn day. That was why. Played open mics, just got out of vials, and then pretty much am here, and then hearing about politics and stuff, and then my brain is melted, so yeah.
Okay, so...
Or I'm off, or whatever.
Morgan.
At the moment. What?
We actually might have a project to do together, because I want to do an episode about how the drum kit was designed.
Oh.
The history of the drum kit.
Okay, I may know part of it only because of Sticky Wicket, but that's about it.
I would love to have you be a part of it. And the way we'll probably do it, the way we'll probably have to do it, is we'll take the audio from you, and I don't know if you have the software to make a little animation for your parts with your little baghead guy. But
I don't think I do, honestly, for that.
Oh, well. Not a big deal. We'll figure it out eventually. It'll probably be down the road.
Crap, but it's hard to do it on this computer.
Well, I mean, you've seen my little character on YouTube now.
Oh, yeah.
My little guy. A friend of mine sketched that in French class. And everyone in French class was like, why are you drawing a picture of Jake? And he doesn't believe, still to this day, that that's a picture of him and me. Because I'm the guy with the skull mask and the match. Because I always wore dark gray hoodies every day. And then there's another part to that picture with him on fire. And it's very clearly him. He doesn't think it's him. It's very clearly him.
Well, I'm sorry I yelled.
Well, we're going to do...
Because I had headphones in.
A second. We're going to do this.
I'm sorry, Rosario. I'm sorry. It's because I had headphones in. I couldn't hear my own voice, and my voice carries.
Eat shit.
Oh, and my friend in Chicago who just got a... Okay, never mind. You keep doing it.
Jacobley. Today's topic is going to be about sand, sun, a political coup, a kingdom in turmoil, and a league of extraordinary gentlemen that doesn't include Sean Connery. That's right, we're talking about how the United States acquired Hawaii as a territory. Hawaii. Many consider this to be a paradise on earth. But before it was America's #1 paradise spot, it was actually the Kingdom of Hawaii, founded in 1795 by King Kamehameha I. The Kingdom of Hawaii was actually a really well-regarded kingdom for its time. It did trade with the UK and the US, as well as Australia, the Philippines, and China, trading sugar and sandalwood to many of these countries. However, the fun wouldn't last long. Due to a revolt in 1819, shortly after the death of King Kamehameha I, and another revolt in 1824. However, in 1831, under the rule of Queen Kahuamanu,
God, that was hard to learn.
Persecution and Catholic persecution in the country was rife, and did cause a massive backlash from the French army. See, the Queen Protestant, and the issue was kicking off were Catholic. And she didn't really get down to their vibe, if you know what I mean. And considering that many of her people had spoken out at this time about the fact that they were being tortured into converting over to Catholic, it seemed people at the time. She didn't want her people
Actually
being
against.
inbred as foreigners, and these foreigners really had no respect.
It's called
them.
proselytizing.
Christian. So this guy, Captain LePace of the he apologized, and he kept threatening to raise the island to the ground, like completely. So under the rule of King Kamehameha II, not wanting to take this threat either, he actually passed a
Uh-oh.
Oh, frick. No, it's his webcam acting like it's freaking idiot, but probably his webcam. There he is.
Morgan.
Why? Okay, wait.
Okay. I'm just making sure you can hear me.
I can hear you, man. I got studio headphones.
I just reloaded though. That's why. I'm making sure my microphone's still attached and working.
Yeah.
Catholic, no longer a crime. However, the French would be back. The peace was short-lived, though, as on February 13th of 1843, Lord George Pollock would show up with the Royal Navy of Britain to the Hawaiian Islands.
Look at that swank.
A small bay. Being a British imperialist, he did what British imperialists did best. He stuck a flag in it. Basically, this psychopath showed up, declared Hawaii his, declared it in the name of the British Army, declared war, and then held his place for a while as diplomats from England, the U.S., and the Philippines got together and, told them,
He was there for 5 fucking months. Okay? He held that spot for 5 fucking months.
back off, bro, we're homies, chill. And he did! And then
He did.
1849, knock knock, who is it? The French again. What about this time? About the same as last time. In this turn, it actually left over and made the faith of Catholicism completely free for the public to practice. Although Hawaii still kind of had some butthurt feelings about the torture, they did allow Catholics to vote. Okay, I know. I've been talking this whole time about the Kingdom of Hawaii. Isn't this supposed to be about how Hawaii became a territory and eventually a state? Well, I'm getting to that. See, the Kingdom of Hawaii's economy was mostly based on export. And so because of that, they were allowed and did a lot of trading with a lot of other countries, including China and the US. With the rise of sugar all around the world, and Hawaii being a perfect place to lay down plantations to grow it, Hawaii's economy surged and became a massive trading powerhouse in the Pacific Theater. With the influence of the first American settlers to Hawaii and the plantations that they would spring up, the economy would flourish in a matter of years. With the first permanent plantation being set up in 1835 by an American-born businessman, the industry began to thrive all over. And with his influence, a lot of other plantations began to spring up for both local and exported companies. As more plantations popped up, so did political issues amongst the native Hawaiians and the American businessmen that were now taking over massive swaths of land. And right at the start of this economy really coming to its big boom, something tragic happened to the economy of the Kingdom of Hawaii. The U.S. started implementing tariffs that were against the goods coming in and out of any country that were going into America. And these tariffs actually did a lot more damage than good to the Hawaiian citizens. The citizens really didn't like it the most was the plantation owners. They were paying significantly higher taxes than the actual citizens themselves, and they weren't just paying it to the local economy, but to the royal family themselves as well. At one point, the King of Hawaii even made a trip to Washington, D.C., no small task at the time, mind you, in order to try to alleviate and lift these tariffs on the Hawaiian.
That's Commandment third. I want to say. I'm pretty sure that was the third.
As well as to maintain a competitive price with other countries.
But I mean, there were 5 of them.
Pretty reasonable, right? Unfortunately for Hawaii, this was also around the same time that America had begun scoping out some property in the Hawaiian Islands. Specifically, this little island called Porta, where Pearl Harbor is. As early as 1874, it has been noted that America was interested in Ford Island as a property that they could buy from Hawaii. And it wasn't until 1875 that they got their chance. As the leaders changed, so did the policies, and so did the government in the way that they addressed things. And after a lot of pressure from not only his citizens and the members of the white American plantation owners, he kind of had to make a decision. So, by traveling to Washington, D.C., he signed the 1875 Reciprocity Act, which stated that the tariffs and the trade between America and Hawaii would be much lower in cost.
Oh my god. Okay.
Yes.
Fixing my camera. I realize I've been on for 2 hours. If you want to catch the video, it went live at 7:30 tonight. About 2 hours ago. You want to know more? The Q&A is kind of basically done at this point.
Yeah.
But we'll be back tomorrow. I mean, I'll be on live tomorrow, and I'll probably be talking and like discussing some points about cargo cults and what they're all about. Yeah, I've been Jacobley, and they don't teach none of what I teach. They don't like facts.
I wouldn't know unless I really searched through all the History Channel, Discovery Channel, all that. That's the only way I could figure it out. And I was always a fan of watching those channels throughout my young life anyway, so...
My issue with History Channel is that they have a tendency to embellish. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing all the time. Sometimes it's necessary. If you want a really interesting sort of documentary to watch, it's really just not I wouldn't call it a documentary. I'd just call it an edutainment show. Watch Adam Ruins Everything on True TV.
Oh my gosh.
Adam Ruins Everything is actually what gave me the inspiration to look into the overthrow of the Kingdom of Hawaii.
Nice.
In his episode, it's very briefly covered and very just chopped through because it's like a 10-minute increment. Not even. And I did 6 hours of research to get 20 minutes of fucking details. So, and I'm really rattling them off. There's not sketches. He has sketches. So, like, that 10-minute little break is really, like, 3 minutes. So, it was definitely interesting to look into. It was a lot more complex than I thought it was going to be. But it was definitely worth doing. It was fun to learn about. It was definitely interesting to learn about. I think I'm going to have to do an episode at some point on John L. Stevens. Because as the U.S. government's minister,
he did a lot of really fucked up shit. He did a lot of fucked up shit. And that was, the Hawaii thing was just one of the more famous of his fucked up shit. But the first character I want to cover in history is a man by the name of Daniel Sickles, who shot and killed his wife's lover, and then used the temporary insanity defense and won the case.
Why did she cheat on him? I'm just wondering. Probably because
She cheated on him with Francis Scott Key's son.
Oh!
And
Oh my God.
Sickle shot him down in front of the White House.
Oh my.
Shot him dead. Bang! Done. End. And that was it. He shot and killed Francis Scott Key's son.
Oh
is
boy.
interesting.
Oh my God.
He used the term that he was under a bout of insanity caused by the grief of his wife adulterizing. Cheating on it. So he went crazy and shot the prick that fucked his girl.
I bet if it was the other way
won.
around and it was, if it was the other way around, I bet the woman would be executed. Unless there was an exception.
Here's where it gets crazier. That happened earlier in his life. He was also a very prominent member of the New York government and served as a general in the New York Army during the Civil War. Now, here's the part that gets crazy, and the part that's really going to be the more important part that I bring up at the end, towards the end. Here's why you want to hear more about Daniel Sickles. He got his fucking leg blown off in Gettysburg. Got his fucking leg blown off because his dumbass went too far forward and got his fucking leg blown off by a cannonball. His leg is still on display at a museum. Interesting footnote, right? So, you'll definitely want to tune into that episode, because that episode's going to be fucking mad. But it's also going to be really informative, and it's going to kind of show you, like, yo, people back in the 1800s were fucked the fuck up in the head.
Oh yeah,
of
the
it.
Victorian era was also screwed up as well.
I mean, until the dawn of modern internet usage, as far as I'm concerned, we were all chimps playing with ourselves in the mud. And I mean, argue me. You really think some prick who had to write shit with a fucking chicken feather would have anything to say to me? I'd hand his bitch ass a bic. Try that. Oh my fucking god!
Well,
Okay.
humanity has, over time,
We have
advanced.
We have advanced. We are no longer the humans that we were back then, is my argument. We are no longer that. We are cyborgs. Just really shitty cyborgs.
Society marches on.
We're just really shitty cyborgs. We're getting
Aren't we
there.
all But aren't we all that? I mean, that's kind of what we are as people.
We weren't until the internet. Actually,
That might have
We
exaggerated
weren't-
and made things in
we weren't
pants
until
worse.
Google. We were not
As far
cyborgs
as-
until Google became the norm. Once Google became the norm, social media followed.
And the toxicity from that, and yeah.
Which leads to health problems, psychological and physical. It's a descending pattern into being cyborgs. Did you see that? I fucking hate this cocksucker. Did you see that Logan Paul
got
Oh,
a
boy.
$300,000 surgery to install
For,
webcam in his fucking forearm.
oh my gosh, even
I'm
people in
dead
Sweden
ass
aren't really
fucking
doing
serious.
that.
Look it up.
Oh my god. Oh
Dead
my
ass
god.
fucking serious. Look it the fuck up. You're gonna find
I
it.
mean,
You're
I've
gonna
heard
go,
that.
"What in the fuck?"
The thing is, even in Sweden, where they're opening the idea of microchips,
Cybernetics is becoming the norm. It's becoming more
the
common.
thing is that, oh my gosh, there's got to be a limit somewhere.
It's not even like a small webcam like my tiny
Wait,
little
was
one.
it Jake Paul?
It's like a whole ass goddamn Nikon that comes out of his fucking arm.
Yo, I think it's Jake Paul.
Jake Paul is one of the Pauls.
Yeah. Because it
Whichever
says
one
like a
of
year ago, 10 million
That's how
views.
little I give a fuck about who it was. I don't even know which Paul it was. But it was a $300,000 fucking cosmetic surgery that installed a web camera in his fucking forearm.
Oh,
Badass, too.
At least Logan made a better decision of spending his money on a Pokemon card.
That's, oh my god, yeah, that was another thing.
It's a damn Charizard. Who wouldn't want to get it?
if I'm gonna spend my money, it's gonna be to go to Turkey for 2 weeks and then never go back.
If I'm going to spend my money on anything, I'm going to spend my money by racking it all up, building a solid living for myself where I can support myself, and then move to Germany.
Germany may not. It's a mixed bag there. I mean, only because of the EU and.
It's not for me. I'm Jewish. Why the fuck would I want to go to Germany?
It's in his damn skin.
It's for Gabby. Gabby's half German, like almost completely half German. And she speaks German. And she
Okay,
wants
that's
to
gonna
go to
scar
Germany.
me. Great. Yeah, great. Now every time I look at my arm, I'm gonna see a camera. Frick. How the freaking hell?
I just don't like the German government.
You probably don't because you're a Republican.
Well, at least under Merkel and how it's going. I mean, the history of Germany itself, it's always been.
Why would you
Empire,
shit on a
fuck.
government that's actually on the rise?
Well, the thing is, it might take other countries with it.
Wait,
It's
wait.
taking other countries with it in the sense that it's part of the European Union. But with
And
Brexit,
there are these people. There are these
Germany's
people
also
that
talking
defend
about
the.
fucking leaving.
Maybe you're too loud.
Germany's talking about leaving. Like, and if they leave, they're going to bring Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and Finland all out of the fucking European Union as well.
Well, screw the European Union.
Obviously. The
There are
European
these
Union
morons
is the truest
that defend
form
the
of socialism failing.
And there are people that defend the EU, or at least this one guy, he was the guy that